Survival mode is your system trying to keep you prepared. It is your body saying, stay alert, stay ready, keep moving, keep scanning, do not drop the ball. And for so many people, this response made sense at some point in their life. Maybe you had to be responsible from a young age. Maybe you learned that achievement created safety. Maybe rest was not modeled for you in early childhood. Maybe you have been through seasons where slowing down did not feel like it was even possible. And maybe your body has simply been under stress for so long that tension has started to feel normal. Welcome to the Blossom Mindset, a space for growth, reflection, and taking intentional steps towards the life that you want to create. I am your host, Lindsay, a behavior analyst, certified clinical trauma specialist, author, and entrepreneur. This podcast is here to support you in building self-awareness, reconnecting with your values, and moving forward with more clarity and intention. Together, we'll explore mindset shifts, practical tools, and meaningful conversations to help you work through challenges, realign when life feels off, and continue growing in ways that truly matter. As a gentle reminder, this podcast is for educational purposes only and is not intended to be a substitute for any mental health or behavioral health treatment. I'm so grateful you are here and ready to start your personal growth journey. Let's get started. Welcome back to the Blossom Mindset. I am so excited to delve into this topic because I feel like so many of us, especially women, are constantly living in that survival mode, may realize it, may not, and don't know what to do. So have you ever noticed that when life looks okay on paper, your body still may feel some tension? Like, technically nothing is necessarily wrong, but you still feel like you are bracing for something, tensing up. You might be resting, but not actually relaxing. Similar to doom scrolling. You might be resting, you're zoning out on your phone, doom scrolling, but are you actually truly relaxing and recharging your battery to its fullest capacity? You may be getting things done, showing up, responding to those messages, taking care of your responsibilities, building the life you said you wanted, but underneath it all, your system still feels like it is in go mode. That hustle culture we talked about, just go, go, go. It feels like it is trying to just survive that cycle. We keep repeating the same cycle like we talked about. And oftentimes that can be a signal that our bodies are in survival mode. And sometimes it can be confusing from the outside because you may look productive. At times you may even feel productive. You may look motivated, like you're getting all the things done, and you may still be motivated. You may even look like you are handling everything well, but internally, it might feel a little bit different for you. It may feel like your mind is scanning for the next thing, your body feels tired, but you are wired, whether that is with energy, whether that is, or like positive energy, or whether that's with more like of a negative energy, that anger, that irritability. You're still wired and waiting for the next thing, whether it's the next thing to do, or even sometimes, what is the next negative thing that's going to happen? I know I dealt with that earlier on this year, like I mentioned before, where it was just negative thing after negative thing, negative thing. I felt like I was in this constant survival mode and my body was so tense, like, okay, what's next? Can I handle one more thing? Probably not. In those moments, it felt like it, but taking a step back, it wasn't as terrible as it seemed initially. And you may also want that peace, but slowing down can sometimes feel very uncomfortable. Maybe because you still feel like you have 1,000 things to do, you didn't get it all done. So slowing down can feel very uncomfortable. Feels like you're lazy, that you're weak, that you're not doing what you need to do and you're failing. But that's not the case either. And I know we've talked about this before. Your body needs that rest. Your body needs to recharge. And that is what I want to delve into in this episode specifically a little bit more. Not that survival mode in the most dramatic way, the most obvious way we can think about it, that you are fighting for your life, but more of that quieter, that internal kind that many high-achieving women, business owners, students, caretakers, and even career-focused women normalize. That is the pace that many people know and feel comfortable in because they have been functioning in that state of survival for so long. And many of us don't always realize that we're living in that survival mode because it has become so familiar. It reminds me of one of the episodes where we talked about growth lives just outside of the comfort zone. If you are not stepping out of that comfort zone that you're in, it is very hard for you to grow and to move forward. And that's kind of the same thing with that survival mode. If you are so comfortable in it, stepping outside of that and actually taking care of yourself and regulating yourself can feel very uncomfortable. So how do we even recognize it? Because sometimes it doesn't look like that full breakdown where you are crying on the bathroom floor, canceling everything, or feeling completely unable to function. Now that may be some of it, because sometimes it does look like that. But a lot of times, survival mode can be much more subtle than that we don't always realize it. Or maybe there's that voice in the back of your head that's like, I'm just trying to get through. I'm just trying to get through. I can do this. Survival mode can sometimes look like thinking ahead and never fully being present where you are too. You're always thinking of the next thing without grounding into the present moment. It can also look like feeling guilty because there's something else you should be doing. Like when you're doom scrolling, you may think like, all right, there's all these things that I should be doing. I just need to relax, shut my brain off. So you may start doom scrolling. But then the other question is it actually recharging? Is it actually helping you? Is it actually restful? Survival mode can also look like staying busy because stillness can bring up so much discomfort. It took me a while to be comfortable sitting in that discomfort of stillness because I always felt like there's so much that I need to do. My task list is not getting smaller. I even felt that guilt of sitting in that stillness for some time, even taking off just to go for a hike for a little bit. It took a lot of work to move past the discomfort, but that is where that growth comes in. I recognized that my body was living in constant survival all the time. And I eventually had to choose, I need to make that change. So it's up to you to choose when you're going to make that change and if you're going to make it. And a lot of it starts with those small steps. And some of those small steps are simply noticing that the survival mode can sometimes look like irritability, brain fog, procrastination, overthinking, and even feeling productive, but you are still feeling so exhausted inside that you just want to crash. And there's going to be seasons where maybe we are living in survival mode for a little bit, but it's still important to incorporate breaks to recharge, to notice and to be aware of it, because there's going to be busy seasons. For college students, maybe it's finals week. You might be living more in survival mode during those weeks. For business owners, maybe you're getting ready to launch a new course or a new product or open a new brick and mortar. And that time leading up to it can be or feel like you are living in survival mode. You're exhausted. But during those times, it's important to notice and to build in some regulation time to help you navigate through that survival mode as much as you can to thrive through it and not feel like you are just surviving. And it's also so important to start to recognize this because our culture often rewards the behaviors that come from that survival mode. We praise overworking. How many bonuses are based off of how much you work and how much you get done, that productivity. Working past hours because maybe you need to finish a project in order to get your bonus. Maybe you need to work so many billable hours in order to get an extra bonus. The constant availability, being ready, being responsive to text, emails, whatever it needs to be in those moments. And even pushing through the high capacity, I'll figure it out, I'll get it done, I'll make it work, I've got this. It can be so normalized in our culture because all of that is what is reinforced. We don't always get reinforced for taking a break. Not everybody is given PTO or paid time to be able to take the day off. A lot of times I see many adults working through being sick because they don't have the time to take off or would much rather use it for something fun. So we're pushing through when our bodies are saying, no, I'm exhausted, I just need to get through. And just because your body has learned how to function that way does not mean that it's not costing you something, because oftentimes it's costing us a lot when we're operating in the survival mode. And when I talk about that survival mode, I'm not saying that anything is wrong with you. I'm talking about a body and a nervous system that has learned to prioritize protection. It can feel easier to stay in those moments, in those survival modes, even though we would think logically that sometimes it'd be easier to just get out of it. but it takes time, it takes effort, it takes awareness, and it takes you shifting and making those changes for yourself. And sometimes it doesn't always seem feasible in the environments that you're in. And when we look at that survival mode in real life, besides like, I'm just fighting for my life, it can sound like I can't turn my brain off. I'm always waiting for the next thing. When is the next bad thing going to happen? When is the ball going to drop? I feel behind even when I'm trying so hard. I have so many things on my list and I can never catch up. I don't know how to slow down without feeling guilty. I shouldn't be slowing down right now. I have so much to do. Or even, I don't feel safe letting my guard down. That's too much for my system right now to let my guard down. Survival mode is your system trying to keep you prepared. It is your body saying, stay alert, stay ready, keep moving, keep scanning, don't drop the ball. And for many people, this response made sense at some point in their lives because that's what they were taught. Maybe you had to be responsible from a young age. Maybe you learned that achievement created safety. Maybe rest was not modeled for you at a young age, or even maybe you had been through seasons where slowing down did not feel possible, or it did not feel safe to slow down because there were so many things that you had going on. Maybe your body has simply been under so much stress for so long that that tension started to feel normal. And when something feels normal, you don't recognize sometimes when things are off because it is your normal that you're living in. And it's sometimes not until you get out of it that you're like, wait, I was living in that? That's not normal? I shouldn't be living in that? I know those are some of the thoughts and feelings I had once I started really prioritizing my own regulation and not living in constant survival anymore. Once the chaos in my internal environment and external environment started to settle down and was no longer chaotic, and I was prioritizing my nervous system, it's like, wait, this is not normal? It's almost uncomfortable because you're living in this survival mode of feeling normal for so long that it doesn't feel normal on the other side where maybe we should be. And sometimes I feel even today that, wait, this is normal. I can feel this peace. I can feel this quiet, even though life is still running around me. I still have so many things to do. It's not about blaming yourself. Our behaviors are often learned behaviors. They're things that we've been taught. They're things that we see in order to get through. And it's about noticing what your system has adapted to, noticing those patterns that you have been taught that you consistently engage in. And through that, it matters because you can force output from a dysregulated system for a while, but it's not sustainable, right? You can push through, you can keep performing, you can keep meeting those deadlines, taking care of people, showing up for work, running the business, managing the household when you come home, going to the gym, checking all of the boxes. But eventually the body's communication starts to get louder and louder and louder. And that communication is often signaled through burnout. We become fatigued, we crash and we burn, and everything is too much. But it's only sometimes when we're living in that survival mode that we notice when the burnout actually hits, when everything does become so much that we're crashing and burning, that we don't recognize those signals that our body is trying to communicate sooner in the time frame, where it's like the stereo. Over time, that noise starts to get louder and louder and louder. And then that's where the crash and burn happens, where we are so focused on what is happening in the future that we sometimes forget to tune into the now. And when that happens, tuning into the now, that volume is very low. So the more that we can increase that self-awareness and shift, we can start to notice it, and that volume's going to be a little bit louder before that crash, before that burn. And that's where it is very important to increase that self-awareness. And other signs to look out for are the inconsistency. When your body is shutting down, maybe you are starting to resent other people around you, yourself, your job. Losing joy in what you are trying to build can also be a sign as well that you are starting to just live in that survival mode and maybe thinking and living too much in the future or the past sometimes, and forgetting to really connect in to the present moment through even feeling disconnected, numb, irritated, overwhelmed by the things that used to feel maybe manageable, or at first they were difficult. They still might feel manageable. And at first, maybe you didn't feel super disconnected from it, but over time, when that system is shutting down, when all of this is building up to survival mode, it starts to become unmanageable for you. And that's where so many people can get frustrated with themselves, where why can't I stay consistent? Why am I procrastinating? Or why do I feel so unmotivated when I know what I want? I know I want to succeed. I know I want to do it. I'm motivated to do it, but I'm crashing and burning. And the question is not always, why am I not disciplined enough? Because you can be disciplined, you can have the skills, but sometimes we have to shift to what is my body protecting me from, and what does my system, my nervous system need in order to feel safe enough to move forward. Because healing, clarity, and those values aligned action become much harder when your body is constantly bracing for the next thing, that tension, that irritability. It can be so difficult to, like I said, heal, have that clarity of what you want or what you need in this moment, and then take that values aligned action forward when you are stuck in the same cycle of survival mode. Because in those moments, it's what can I do to get through? How do I keep pushing through just to get through, without then shifting to the mindset of what does my nervous system need to navigate through this, to understand my path in this moment in a more healthy way versus just trying to navigate. It's like putting a Band-Aid on. Sometimes we put a Band-Aid on without actually taking care of the problem, that root cause. So that's kind of like what happens with that survival mode. You're not addressing the root cause, and sometimes you might feel like you can't. So it's important to take that step back and recognize, like, what is one small step I can take to start to shift, because we can't change it overnight. It takes time to regulate our systems. It takes time. It's a skill that is built, not necessarily a skill that you already have. So the more that we practice it, the easier it becomes, the easier it is to shift out of that survival mode when you're starting to notice that you're going into it. So it's up to you to figure out, what are those small steps that I can take to start to create those shifts? And how bad do you want it? Do you want to keep living in that survival mode, or do you want to learn how to navigate through it? There's going to be times, like I mentioned at the beginning of the episode, that we're going to have to navigate, because it will feel heavy. It will feel overwhelming. Life is not something that is always easy to work through. So it's learning how to overcome those obstacles, how to handle those emotions when they come up. And a lot of times it can be so much easier when we are actively regulating our nervous system. And that does not mean we have to be calm. It's being able to conquer those emotions when they come up. It does not mean we can't feel them, because it is very important to feel those emotions. It's how we respond to them and how we navigate through them. Instead of allowing it to take us down, how can we regulate through it and continue to move forward with that values aligned action? And I think it's so important when we talk about building our dream life or creating a life, because it's not just something that is going to look good. It is not just the career, the business, the relationship, the wellness routine, the travel, the dream home, the dream schedule, the aesthetic that you might see on Pinterest or Instagram that you aspire to implement in your life, or even the goals. It should also be supported in your body. It should be balanced. And that is such an important distinction that I cannot stress enough, that we need this balance in order to create that life. Like I said, a dream life or a regulated life is not just calm. It does not mean that you can't feel those emotions, and that's where that balance comes in. Being able to allow yourself to feel those emotions that you're struggling with and still move through them with more ease than allowing those emotions to control you. Because we sometimes are building lives that look aligned on the outside, but internally they still require us to override ourselves constantly. So I want you to gently ask yourself this: does the life that I'm building actually feel safe to live in? Or am I building a life that keeps asking my nervous system to push past its limits? Is it sustainable? I want you to take some time this week to reflect on, is what I'm living in currently in this moment a sustainable practice long term that is going to move me towards the life that I want to create for myself? Asking yourself, am I creating a life that supports regulation, connection, rest, and even joy? Or is the life that I'm living in now creating a life that still depends on pressure, urgency, and self-abandonment to keep me going. Now, sometimes pressure and urgency is helpful. I'm not saying that that's never something that we should have, because sometimes pressure and urgency is going to show up. There's deadlines we need to meet. There's going to be pressure in life. However, if it's moving you away from your goals, then that's something we need to look at. If it's pushing you into that survival mode because you're constantly living in a life that is aligned with that, then that's where we need to start to make those shifts. Because it's also not about living this perfect life. I don't believe that exists. There will always be stress. There will always be responsibilities. There will always be seasons that will ask more of you. There's always going to be something that we don't want to do and we have to do it. But if your entire life requires you to live and stay in that survival mode in order to maintain it, it may be time for you to pause and look at what is needed to shift. So here are a few signs that your body may still be living in survival mode, even if things look okay on the outside. You struggle to rest without guilt. You feel anxious when things get quiet. You procrastinate and then panic because you procrastinated and you have so much to do. You overwork because it helps you feel in control. I'm calling myself out on this one. It's something I used to do all the time, and I'm learning to set boundaries around this one in order to regulate my nervous system. You have trouble being present, even during moments you want to enjoy. You get more easily irritated than usual. You feel tired but wired. Again, doesn't always have to be positive energy. Sometimes it can be more negative energy when we talk about wired. It's like that brain running at night and you're having a hard time falling asleep because your brain is constantly thinking and won't settle down. You crave peace, but when peace is available, you don't know how to settle into it. Again, calling myself out. It was very uncomfortable for me to feel that peace. Now I crave it. I'm so excited when I finally have it, and I notice myself shifting into it more just to regulate. You may also notice that you are constantly thinking about what's next, the next task, the next goal, the next problem, the next thing to fix, the next thing you want to do to improve yourself. And again, none of this means you're broken. It means your system may be operating from urgency, and it's used to operating from urgency because that's what it was trained to do. So now we need to train it not to. And again, it takes time. I'm here for support if you need it. If you feel like you need some coaching, it's support that I offer. Feel free to send me a message on my website. I love working through that regulation component, especially with young adult women who are really not sure where to start. So we work through identifying what you need and implementing some strategies to help you be successful, because doing it alone can be very hard, especially if you are already operating in survival mode all the time. And I know I've said this before, but I want to reiterate it. Here's a gentle reframe I want you to remember. You are not weak. You are not lazy. You are not failing at healing. You are not failing at your own journey. And you are not behind because your body needs support. Your system may simply need safety, consistency, and to operate at a different pace than what you're used to. Sometimes what looks like procrastination is feeling overwhelmed. And sometimes what looks like laziness is actually your body shutting down, freeze mode. Sometimes what looks like irritability is actually a body that has been carrying too much for too long, that fight mode. Fight mode doesn't always mean a physical fight. It just means you're kind of like pushing into something. And sometimes what looks like inconsistency is actually a nervous system that does not feel safe enough to sustain the change that you are trying to create. So we want to create change that is going to be sustainable. And that starts with those small shifts, those small actions. And that is why also regulation matters so much, because we cannot shame ourselves into a regulated life. We cannot constantly criticize our bodies and then expect them to feel safe. We cannot build that supportive life while ignoring the signals that are telling us that something needs to change, that we need to care about our bodies. So I want to leave you with a few reflection prompts this week. You can journal on them, sit with them during a walk, listen to them again, tune into the specific segment, or just notice what comes up as I say them. What has my body been trying to tell me lately? Where have I normalized stress simply because I am used to functioning in it? What parts of my life feel supportive and what parts still feel like survival? Where am I glorifying my stress response and calling it ambition? Where am I pushing through when my body is asking me to slow down, adjust, or receive support? What would it look like to build a life that does not require me to abandon my body in the process? You don't have to answer them perfectly. They're just simply an invitation for you to start to notice where in your life you are successful and where you are operating in survival mode, and then what shifts we need to make. Because healing is also just not about thinking differently. It is also helping your body to not stay on high alert all the time, creating those small moments of safety, those small pauses. We have to train our nervous systems to be safe. Our nervous system is there to protect us, and when we're operating in different states or encounter different triggers in the past, our nervous system may learn to respond one way, and it's up to us to teach it how to contact that safety. And even in those small shifts in how you respond to yourself, we want to create that safety and remind your body that I am here. I am safe in this moment. I do not have to rush through my entire life. Sometimes we may initially react to something, especially when our nervous system is already on high alert, that maybe didn't need to be reacted to. That's not to diminish or invalidate your feelings or how your body is reacting, but sometimes our body will remember something. So when something similar happens, it will react under what would have been those previous circumstances. So that's where we have to have that self-awareness to remember or tell our systems in the moment, am I safe or am I not safe? And when we're not safe, then we have to react a different way. But if we are safe, we can kind of tell our nervous system, like, I'm good. I know you're trying to protect me, but I'm good. I don't need protection right now, because what I thought may have needed a big reaction, or what my nervous system actually thought may have needed a big reaction, I may have actually been safe. And it's up to us sometimes to tell our bodies that. And when our brain completely shuts offline after a trigger happens, it doesn't always know how to respond effectively because that brain-body connection is shut off, which we'll go into in another episode a little bit more in depth on that. So just remember, your body is trying to protect you, but protection does not have to be the only mode that you live in. You do not need to constantly live in survival mode in order to succeed. You are allowed to build a life that feels good to exist in, and not just one that looks great from the outside, but you are struggling inside. And that's where that balance comes in. You are allowed to pursue your goals while also supporting your nervous system at the same time. I think that is so important and one of the top skills that I teach, because we have to support our nervous system. And sometimes that is also supported through contacting those triggers and being able to build that tolerance for different scenarios we're in, because we're also allowed to grow without constantly running on pressure. But we have to contact some of these triggers in order to allow our nervous system to build up the tolerance for our nervous system to feel safe. And this week, again, I want you to reflect on those questions. Go back if you need to. Remember that maybe the next step is not about doing more. It's learning how to feel safe enough to be here in this present moment and take those baby steps. Maybe that next step is also learning how to sit with the discomfort, to grow, and to allow your body to contact safety outside of the survival mode. It's a big mindset shift, but it also takes you to choose to act in a different way to break the survival mode cycle. Thank you for joining in on this episode of The Blossom Mindset with me. I hope that our discussion has inspired you to take actionable steps towards blossoming into your fullest potential. Don't forget, the best way to show your support is by liking, sharing, and leaving a 5-star review on this podcast. Feel free to drop any ideas for future podcast topics by commenting on my most recent Instagram post of this episode. If you are interested in additional resources or one-to-one coaching, check out our website linked in the show notes. I am so proud of you. By tuning in and listening, you just took one small, actionable step forward towards blossoming into your fullest potential.